Welcome back for another Wednesday episode. Working on Dylan's car again, and for today's project, it's the last final push for his VVT build this season. We've already tested this out. We already know that it's worthwhile. We figured we would revert back to his old style just to show you guys the install process. So what he's been running in the past is this cold side 180 degree intake bend tube. It's better than a hot side setup, but still it's a tight 180 radius and it's definitely pinching the silicone hose. So it's not the best. So what we're going to go with now is a fiberglass front bumper intake. So it pulls air straight from the front bumper here. It's the coldest air possible without like cutting through the hood or something. They're pretty hard to find. You've probably seen them around, but we hooked up with Ryan Conforti, who's going to start making these things. He's gauging interest. So if you watch this and decide you want one, which you should, definitely hit him up. We'll put his info down below. So what it is a fiberglass intake that crosses over the radiator and pulls air right from here. Install is super simple, and we've dynoed it, and it seems to have great results. So this is the intake in question. Keep in mind, it is a prototype that Ryan sent us. It's the one he was running on his car. The models that he's going to send out are definitely a much nicer piece than this. And we've also done some of our own stuff to make it fit. So you can see here on this beautiful end, Dylan made his own little, we'll call it a turbo guard for his NA motor. But we were in a rush like the day of the dyno, so we just essentially fitted a screen over this just to make sure we didn't suck anything big into the car. We didn't have the right filter, but in reality, for real street use, there's a filter size that fits right in this pocket here, and I'll make Dylan buy one. And that's what you want to run on this, and it fits all nice up in there. And some of you might be concerned that, this gets really narrow, it doesn't get the same amount of airflow. The volume across the entire thing is identical, so if it's 2.5 inches here, 2.5 inches here, the area in here is still equivalent to 2.5 inches. So you don't lose, there's no performance loss there. This just narrows out so you can shut the hood. This whole thing fits under here. Hood shuts like normal, and it's a really nice solution to get some cold air into our engine bays.
So like Stefan was just saying, Ryan was able to get us all this stuff within like a week and a half, right before we went to the dyno. So, we're doing this retroactively. We would have wanted to do this before, but we were just in such a time crunch that, this is what we're doing. We're going back in time.
We're sending you back to the future!
So Ryan also had some couplers that he sent with his current setup. We kind of mashed that together with a couple of things we had laying around. So we actually created our own little pipe so we could have a sensor in here. He's got brake ducting, which honestly, it doesn't look that pretty. You'll see in a moment. But it's great. It works really easy. We slapped this whole thing in like 10 minutes as we were getting ready for the dyno, when I realized that we didn't have a filter that fit, like Stefan was saying. So I just found some screen, threw it on there. We'll be fixing that in the future. But we were able to at least make the dyno and get to that whole situation. So we'll also install this to show you what our solution was. I would like to clean this up and make it look a little nicer. It's pretty cobbled together. We got a plastic piece going to a pipe, going to some brake ducting. Totally works, but not what I would want in the long run. So either way, we'll install what we have now to show you what we did to get to the dyno.
So definitely the hardest thing I think I've ever installed in my life. Took a whole, 15 seconds this time.
Definitely day of, we ran into, a couple hiccups when we were literally trying to leave for the dyno. This is a prototype,
Right.
as you can see. It's definitely rough. It's not, like a finished piece, but this is what allowed us to get that optimized intake routing for the dyno, and really what helped us get to that 150 wheel on 93. Really, the difference between the 135 to 150 wheel was the intake. The whole route into the engine had been changed from the routing, the throttle body, and the intake manifold. Now, we don't have enough time to go to the dyno and test one of these items at a time. If I had to guess, I would say probably 85% of the change, if not maybe a little more, was from the intake manifold itself, which I was really surprised about. This is what really changed our power band to allow us to really access the other 1200 RPM up at the top, and that's where most of our gains were made. I don't think the throttle body did much at all, if I'm honest, but I think the intake routing had a big part to play. We don't have that 90-degree bend in there, and more than anything, for anyone who's been in the dyno before and then driven their cars at like hot days like you've experienced, IT temps really do matter. Just because you're in an optimal situation in the dyno doesn't mean that you're always going to have that power. Like you experienced a lot of that power cut.
Yeah, anything on my car, anything over 160 degrees, it starts to retard timing and cut power, and you can hear it and feel it. Where in this case, if I could figure this out on the K-swap, this would be the perfect solution, right? It doesn't get colder than the front of the car. Mm-hmm. So this is really the best solution, and of all the options I've seen, it's definitely still the cheapest, probably.
Absolutely. We were trying to get this set up from the beginning.
For months.
When we were conceptualizing and building this engine, we're like, man, I want that intake. How can we get it? There are CAD files out there for the 3D printing, but to print them, you're talking upwards of $350 for just this piece.
Right, it's got to be high heat material because you're on the radiator.
Yeah.
The fact that Ryan knows and is capable of fiberglassing something like this makes all the difference. So big shout out, Ryan. This is an awesome piece.
Absolutely. And not only did he send us this prototype, but he was moving at the time. So Ryan, you are an absolute legend. We would not have been able to make it to the dyno to hit that 150 wheel without your help. I firmly believe that. And that is what I set out to do with this build. It's a big number for this setup.
Yeah, for an NA BP motor. 150 on any dyno is really a nice BP number. So sadly, this really, for now, only works on an NA setup. I would be interested in trying to convert it to function with a turbo setup. I don't think it's too difficult, but that would be the best solution.
And we've got a prototype to play with, so we'll keep you posted this winter when some changes might be happening to our setup.
We're going to make it actually fast now.
Stay tuned. And if you like this episode, if you have any other comments, let us know. We're, like Stefan said earlier, we'll put Ryan's contact information down below. He's kind of testing the waters to see if there is, any interest in this. I think there's a huge demand for it. It's hard to get that intake, and that's the best intake NA. Going to the track, just driving in hot summer weather, if you want all the power NA, that's the way you do it.
And it's worth noting that you do not need a Megasquirt to run this. If you have a 94 and up with the mass airflow sensor, you can put that right here. And you can get rid of the whole stock airbox and still get way lower IATs, cleaner engine bay, everything. So, great piece. I've been looking for one for years for my CSP car, so awesome. Glad to finally know somebody who can make one.
Cool. Thanks, Ryan.
Intake that runs through this fender hole. Wow. What we're going to do is... Okay. What is it? Tip of the tongue, top of the teeth?